Hey friends, Trevor here with Love It Properties. I wanted to bring you another video this week, and this one's going to be about something that has been occurring a lot this spring for me, and it's something that is naturally going to be on the minds of all the people that just made a ton of equity after owning a home, is can I make the switch from selling the home that I have into buying a new home right now? There's a lot of strategy around this, and so I want to dive in to basically talk about several different strategies that make sense, but then also kind of detail how that makes the most sense in this current market right now that we're seeing. So hopefully some of this stuff will be super helpful and will help you understand what can you do with your equity? How can you actually get into a better home, and if this is the right time to do it. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about it. So the most common questions that are probably running through your mind if you're considering selling right now is, are the values going to keep going up? Are they going to stall because the interest rates are going up? What happens if the values both go up and the interest rates go up at the same time? What happens if they come down? What happens if I try to sell and basically lose a bunch of my equity as a result? Those are the buzz questions on everyone's mind. They're all worried about, is this growth that we've experienced, is it sustainable? And can you continue on that trajectory, or should we get out now and upgrade into the new house that I'm going to be in for the next 10 to 15 to 20 years, right? The permanent home, the one you want to stay in for a long time. And so a lot of people are asking those questions, and one thing that I would say to give you a lot of confidence in this current market, really in the Raleigh, Durham market versus other markets in the US, is that on average, this is just a May statistic, but on average about 62 and a half people, I don't know how it's a half person, but 62 and a half people are moving here to Raleigh, to Wake County specifically, every day. Every day. That is the third highest in the nation as of May, which to me speaks volumes about the health of our market and the future trajectory of our market, right? If you're thinking about selling, and you're wondering, man, is this whole economy going to tank? Am I going to lose value right now because of this kind of stall in the market? I think it's a safe bet to bet on the fact that house prices are going to continue to go up. Now that affects you positively if you're thinking about just sitting on your home and waiting for a while, right? You're going to make money. But it affects you negatively if you're thinking about waiting to buy a new home next year or the year after, maybe just waiting on interest rates to come down. You have to think about that ratio in effect for the new home too. Maybe you own a $300,000 home. That's what you would pocket if you sold it on the market today, but you're thinking about upgrading into a $450,000 home. Well, guess what? Those things do not appreciate at the same rate, right? If your $300,000 home is appreciating at 8% per year and a $450,000 home is also appreciating at 8% per year, there's going to be a gap, right? You're going to lose money unless you update sooner, unless you upgrade sooner, because that $450,000 home is going to gain value faster because it's worth more. And so that's something you need to be thinking about. If it's a safe bet that the market's always going to keep going up in Raleigh, at least for the foreseeable future, then odds are if you wait, you're only going to lose money. So just for sake of numbers, because I think this is helpful, let's take that $300,000 home example and say that you are appreciating at 8% per year. That's been a normal number the past several years. I think within the last year we had some astronomical numbers, 24, 25% appreciation in 1 year. But let's just bring it down to 8, and let's say at 8%, 300,000, that means you're going to make about $24,000 of equity per year. It's 8% of 300,000. Well, let's bump that up to that $450,000 house statistic. Now that number changes to $36,000 of equity gained in 1 year. That means if you wait to buy the home that is worth $450,000, there is a $12,000 deficit there, meaning if you wait 1 year, you will have lost $12,000 of equity that could have been gained by buying it sooner. Or another way to think about it is if you wait a year, you're going to have to pay $12,000 more for that home if the market keeps going up. And odds are it will. This market is growing so fast. So that's one easy, helpful statistic to kind of see, hey, I'm losing money by not moving faster. If my plan is to get into a new house, then waiting in a market that is growing is not really a good strategy. So let's just run some numbers on the interest part of the equation as well, so you understand what waiting can do in that regard as well. So interest rates are totally fluid right now. No one knows what the Fed is doing. I don't think the Fed knows what they're doing at this point, but there is a possibility that interest rates will increase next year. So if you had a $400,000 loan, that's not the value of the home, that's just saying you're getting a mortgage for $400,000, and you took a 5% interest rate, you would be paying $20,000 in interest every year. That's an annual percentage rate of 5% of the loan every single year, right? $20,000. Well, if the interest rate went up by just a single point, just 1 point, up to 6% next year, and you took a 6% interest rate instead of a 5% next year, you would now be paying $24,000 in interest. Well, that's a $4,000 gap. That's a lot of money. That equates to like $330 a month that you're paying in addition just because the rates went up by a whole point. Well, let's turn that into, or let's add those two things together. If you're losing, let's say $12,000 of equity each year as the market appreciates, and you could potentially be gaining $4,000 of cost in an interest rate, well, now you're sitting at $16,000 of cost lost because you didn't move sooner than later. Now, that's not to say interest rates won't come down next year. It's very possible that they will. The Fed might just go, oh, wow, the economy is in turmoil. I need to back off of this. They might pump it down, and it might come back into the 3s or 4s. That would be great, but we don't know if that's going to be the case. And my argument would be, well, then you could just refinance then. If you took a higher interest rate now, you can get into something lower then, or you can expect that maybe interest rates are going to keep going up as they have historically. And therefore, getting an interest rate now is smarter. Even though it's higher than what we've seen in the last couple of years, you lock in now for a lower interest rate in the hopes that if it goes up, you don't have to pay those prices later. So really, this benefits you in multiple ways, jumping into the boat sooner than later in a market that's appreciating fast and growing as fast as this Raleigh Durham market. So just some helpful statistics to think about. A lot of people just go, the interest rates are too high, values are all over the place. I just don't think I'll be able to do this. I'll have to wait. I don't think waiting is ever really a good option in this market. Waiting is only going to cost you something versus help you make something. And so if your plan is in the next year or 2 or 3 to upgrade and get into that bigger home for you or for your family, I would say now is the best time, because any time later than now is going to lose you some money. But let's talk more in detail about the strategy side of things. How can you pull this off? If you think you want to sell sooner than later, where are we at in the market and how do we do that? Everyone knows the market has been cooling rapidly, right? The 20 plus offers we had on every listing in the spring has suddenly become 1 to 2 offers on every listing. But that's actually a huge advantage for buyers that are still in the game because inventory has actually been increasing as things have sat out there for longer, as more listings have kind of come unlocked, and they're just kind of trying to see if they can make this equity that they've earned over the past few years. And so there's more out there and there's less competition, which means buyers can take their time, they can get in the door, they can put a reasonable offer on the table instead of having to compete in these crazy ways in order to get a house like we were in the spring. And it's just an easier time to get under contract as a buyer. That's a huge asset to you as a person who's thinking, I need to find my next home. It's a really important asset as a potential home seller, because now other sellers are more open to receiving contingent offers, meaning they will entertain an offer in which you're saying, I need to sell my home before buying your home. The last couple of years, that's almost been a non-existent strategy. You can't do that when there's this much competition because they'll just find someone else who is non-contingent. But if you in this market come forward with your contingent offer, you might have a really good shot at beating out other offers. One misnomer is, oh, there's no competition, right? Competition's gone. I can just get anything I want. I can take my time, make my decision. Not true. There are still 62.5 people moving to the area every single day, and that competition is there. Just had a buyer recently get under contract on one in a neighborhood that we thought had completely cooled off. We thought there was no competition, and we got so fortunate that we got under contract, reached out to the seller that same day and said, hey, we want to put an offer on your house. And they said, man, I'm glad you reached out because we had someone else that was just about to contract on this, but they haven't got us anything yet. So we came in just in time in order to snag it from another buyer. There was competition there. We just managed to edge it out. And that's something you can do in this market. You can kind of edge out competition by being the first to jump in. So there's possibilities out there, guys. It's a really good time to be a buyer. What's kind of happening in our market currently is that we have something we're referring to as a balanced market. In the springtime, when there was just chaotic competition for listings, that was a very seller powerful market, right? Sellers had all the authority. They can get what they wanted. Buyers were a dime a dozen. They're all over the place and throwing crazy numbers. Well, now that it's flipping back to kind of an equal playing field, basically sellers and buyers are on the same level. One doesn't have a greater advantage than the other. Interest rates have kind of helped equalize that a little bit. And so the advantage you have as a buyer is that you can actually walk in and get something accepted for a change without having to compete in these crazy things. As a seller, you see reduced competition on your listing, but odds are your value is secure because the actual market is still valuable. So it's actually one of the best possible times to be thinking about making this transition and doing both selling and buying at the same time, because in a balanced market, things are a little easier to kind of mold together and figure out that transition. There's a lot of options that you can investigate. There's contingencies that are sellers are just open to being to working with contingent offers, things like that. So it's a really balanced time to be thinking about this and a great time to be doing both buying and selling at the same time.